I opened the door and froze. Mark stood there with Kelly, arms crossed, tight-lipped. Behind them, Mason clutched a plastic dinosaur, his eyes wide. No warning, no call. Just 3 shadows on my porch. "We need to talk," Kelly said. I stepped aside. They entered like it was their house. Mark barely looked at me. Kelly sat first, claiming the armrest. Mark followed, dropping onto the couch like he'd been carrying the weight of a secret too long. Mason wandered to the coffee table, placing his toy near the old coasters. I stayed standing. "We've done the math," Kelly started. "And frankly, this situation isn't sustainable." I blinked. "What situation?" "Your income," Mark said flatly. "We know about it." He didn't look ashamed. If anything, he looked annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced him by not bringing it up first. Kelly leaned forward. "We're not asking for charity. We're family. But with daycare, rent, food, and tuition down the road, we need support. Real support." I looked at Mason. He watched his parents speak like it was a show he'd seen before. "We've thought about it carefully," Mark added. $3,000 a month. That covers Mason's expenses, plus what we're behind on." "Behind on?" What I asked quietly. "Everything," Kelly snapped. "Utilities, credit, we're drowning, and you think I'm the solution?" Kelly smirked. "You're sitting on money. You live alone. You barely spend." I swallowed hard. Mark's voice softened. "We're not trying to guilt you, but you have to understand this isn't just about you. This is about Mason. Your grandson." Mason was now tracing the rim of my coffee mug with one finger. I crossed my arms. "How did you find out about my income?" Kelly shrugged. "People talk. You bragged to Diane about the investments," she told her sister. "We put the pieces together." "So that's how." They stared at me, waiting, expecting agreement, applause, something. I didn't speak. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain slightly, then let it fall back. "You've always had a roof," Mark said. "Dad made sure of that. Now it's your turn." The name burned. "You want $3,000 a month?" I repeated. Kelly stood. "We'll come by next Friday. If you could start by then, that'd be great. Set up a recurring transfer." Simple. Mason tugged at her sleeve. "I'm hungry." "We'll go soon, baby," she said sweetly, then turned to me. "Thanks, Lenora. I'm glad we can finally be honest about this." I opened the door. They filed out, not waiting for my reply. Mason paused at the threshold, looked back. "Nice house, Grandma." The door clicked shut behind them. I didn't move, didn't sit. I stared at the mug on the table, still warm from coffee I hadn't finished. Then I turned, walked to the kitchen, and opened the drawer beneath the stove. I pulled the drawer open. The metal caught halfway, always did. I gave it a tug. Papers shifted. Folders pressed against old manuals. Underneath the warranty forms and a curled Christmas card from 2009, I found them. 3 envelopes held together with a brittle rubber band. I sat at the table, peeled the band off. It snapped in 2. The first envelope had my name in Daniel's handwriting, block letters, sharp corners. "For Lenora, in case." The paper had yellowed. I ran my thumb over the crease before I opened it. His voice came back as I read. "If they ever come for you, use these. You'll know when it's time." He'd written it the year before the heart attack, before he lost his words but not his eyes. I'd caught him watching me from the hospital bed, like he knew something I didn't. Inside the envelope were 3 things: a letter, a photocopy of our trust papers, and a 1-page legal note with a highlighted section, Clause 4C. I'd forgotten about that clause. I read it twice. In the event of coercion or financial pressure exerted on the surviving spouse by family members or legal heirs, the trustee may invoke a 10-year asset protection freeze. Upon request, and with supporting documentation, the trust shall immediately lock all disbursements and reassign full financial control to the named spouse. I blinked, then read it again. Daniel had known. Maybe not exactly this shape this moment, but something like it. He'd seen how Mark changed when money entered the room. The resentment, the entitlement. Daniel never said it aloud, but it lived between his silences. I set the letter down, brought the mug to my lips. Cold now. Across the table, the coaster was still damp where Mason's toy had sat. I exhaled, pushed the envelope back into the folder, then added, today's piece, my handwritten account of the conversation. Dates, time, words used. I noted Mason's presence. Kelly's phrasing. The demand. The tone. Daniel taught me to document everything. Don't argue. Record he'd said the year Mark totaled the truck and tried to blame me for not co-signing the insurance. I reached into the drawer again and pulled out the voice recorder I used for grocery lists. Checked the memory, cleared it, laid it on the counter. Then I opened the second drawer, pulled out a fresh legal pad. The page crackled as I tore it free. I wrote $3K month demand, unannounced visit, Mason present, accusation selfishness. Under that, I wrote one more line, begin preparing. No confrontations. I clipped the paper to the back of Daniel's envelope, sealed it in a plastic sleeve, and placed it in the safe behind the coat rack. When I returned to the table, the house was quiet again. I poured a fresh cup of coffee, this one hot. Then I opened my laptop and started a search estate protection clauses, revocable trust North Carolina law. I pulled weeds from the edge of the walkway. The sun pressed down. My knees ached, but I didn't stop. I needed the motion, the distraction. I yanked a root clean out and dropped it into the bucket. Hey, Lenora. I looked up. Marie stood at the fence, arms folded over the top rail, sunglasses pushed into her hair. She lived 2 doors down. Nice woman. We'd shared pies and gossip for years. I didn't see you at the party Saturday, she said. You okay? I wiped my hands on my jeans. What party? She blinked. Mark and Kelly's, for Mason's birthday. I froze. They rented the whole bounce house setup, food truck, DJ, big turnout. She watched me. I didn't flinch, didn't ask anything else. I just nodded. I didn't know. Her eyes widened. Oh, I thought you would have. Sorry, I just assumed. No, I said. You're fine. She hesitated. Mason mentioned your cookies. He said they're better than the ones they served. I smiled once, then picked up the bucket. Have a good morning, Marie. Inside, I set the bucket down and poured a glass of water. My hand shook slightly. I held the rim tight, sat down, stared at the tile floor. A birthday party. Here, in town. For my grandson. At the house, I helped them put a down payment on, and I wasn't invited. I picked up my phone, opened messages. Nothing. Opened the shared family calendar app, long since silent. I texted Mark. Heard there was a party. Hope it went well. I didn't expect a reply. But 5 minutes later, one came. Oh yeah, just a small thing. Didn't want to overwhelm Mason. I typed back. Understood. Thanks for letting me know. I set the phone down and stared at the screen. Not even a photo. Not even an afterthought. An hour later, Kelly texted. Just a line. Wasn't anything big. Just close people. I let the words sit. Just close people. I walked to the living room, opened the hall closet, pulled out the blue plastic bin where I stored old decorations. Inside was a banner. Mason turns 3. I'd ordered it last year. Laminated the corners, rolled it carefully. They hadn't asked for it this year. I put the bin back, closed the door, locked it. Then I returned to the table, opened my legal pad, and added one more line. Excluded from family event. Response. Just close people. I filed the note into the envelope, set the recorder nearby. That afternoon, I made a list of everything I'd ever paid toward their home gifts. Cash loans never repaid. I cross-referenced it with my checkbook and printed receipts from my bank portal. I punched holes. Filed them by year. Labeled each sleeve. Then I started a new tab in my spreadsheet. Titled it, Historical Support, Mark and Kelly. I opened the door before they could knock. Kelly had that smile, the one she wore when she wanted something but didn't plan to say it outright. Mark stood a step behind her, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. We were in the neighborhood, she said. Thought we'd stop by. I let them in. No coffee this time. Mason ran past me straight to the sunroom. His shoes left faint prints across the tile. He pressed his hands against the glass and looked at the yard like it was something new. Kelly followed his gaze. You know, she said this space could be amazing for him. I said nothing. She walked in, circled, slowly looked at the corner chair, the small bookshelf, the old bird feeder hanging outside the window. It's just kind of wasted right now. Mark stepped in. We were thinking we could help remodel it. Just rearrange a few things. Make it usable, more functional, for what I asked. Kelly didn't flinch. A playroom, art space. Somewhere for Mason when he's here. You don't really use it. She barely sits in here anyway, Mark added. My eyes stayed on the glass. The smudge Mason left was already drying. I saw my reflection in it, faint. Off to the side. I like this room, I said. Kelly laughed lightly. Of course we'd keep your chair. It's just he's growing so fast. It'd be good for him to have his own corner. I turned and walked out without a word. In the kitchen, I wiped down the counter. Slowly, one swipe at a time. Mark followed. We're not trying to take over, he said. Just build something together. Then build it in your own house, I said. His jaw tensed. We're just trying to include you. No, I said, facing him. You're trying to manage me. Kelly appeared behind him holding Mason's jacket. We'll talk another time. Don't bother. Her mouth opened, then closed. They left 5 minutes later. I didn't walk them out. The sunroom door stayed open. I stood in the kitchen, watching the curtains sway. That room had been Daniel's favorite. He'd read the paper there every morning, even after his hands shook too much to hold the mug. I walked back in, picked up the dinosaur Mason left behind, placed it on the windowsill. Then I grabbed my notebook and wrote, Attempt to claim sunroom. Justification. I don't use it. Response denied. I filed the note, turned off the lights, closed the door to the sunroom. The next morning I changed the lock. I tore the envelope open. Inside was a credit card statement with my name printed bold across the top. Balance due $4.387.42. I stared at it, reading the numbers twice, then again. I hadn't opened a new card. I hadn't signed for anything in years. I flipped through the pages. Gas stations in Raleigh, a sporting goods store, 2 charges at Best Buy, a payment to a furniture outlet. Not mine, not even close. I called the number on the back. After 15 minutes of menus and waiting, a woman's voice came on. Calm, polite. Can you confirm the secondary card holder on the account, she asked? I waited. My heart thudded. Mark Callan, she said. The line buzzed in my ear. My son. He'd used my name, my credit, to get what he wanted. I hung up before I could shout. I sat at the table, both hands on the paper, steadying it. My chest felt hollow. I pulled out Daniel's folder. Added another sheet, unauthorized account in my name. I wrote down the number, the balance, the purchases. The anger came slow, like heat seeping into a room. I thought of the times I'd slipped Mark money without telling Daniel back when Mark swore he'd pay me back. I thought of the truck I co-signed, the debt I covered when he missed payments, the little rescues I'd justified as helping. Each time I believed it was the last. Now, he hadn't even bothered to ask. I dialed again. Asked for fraud services. This time I kept my voice cold. I confirmed my identity, filed the report, froze the account. They promised to send paperwork within 10 business days. I made notes of every step. Afterward, I sat in silence. I thought of Mason, of how his father would explain it to him someday, probably not the truth, but some twisted story where I came out the villain. I imagined Kelly's hand on Mark's shoulder, whispering that it was my duty, that parents were supposed to sacrifice, that I had more than I needed. I reached for the recorder, pressed the red button, spoke slowly, each word like a nail driven straight. Today, I received a credit card bill in my name, account opened without my consent. Secondary cardholder, my son, Mark Callan. Charges over $4,000. Fraud report filed, account frozen. I clicked it off, slid it into the envelope drawer. Then I picked up the statement again, smoothed the edges, folded it in half, and placed it in the sleeve marked evidence. By evening, I had a pot of coffee brewing and the file box open on the counter. I arranged the papers by date, the visits, the party exclusion, the sunroom demand. Now this theft plain and simple. I closed the box, carried it to the closet, set it behind the coats. Tomorrow I would call Diane. I dialed before the coffee finished brewing. Diane picked up on the third ring, her voice as steady as ever. Lenora, I need to go over Daniel's will. She didn't ask why, didn't hesitate. I'll come by at noon. Bring the file. I hung up, poured the coffee, and opened the closet. The file box felt heavier than usual. I set it on the table, peeled off the lid, and pulled out the manila envelope marked Final Daniel Callan, 2009. At exactly 12, Diane knocked. Same pressed slacks, same sensible shoes. She'd been calm at Daniel's funeral too. The only one who didn't cry just handed me tissues and kept checking the paperwork. We sat at the table. I spread out the documents. You kept everything she said, flipping through. Thank God. She pulled her glasses from her purse and clipped them to her nose. Page by page she read. She made soft sounds in her throat when she saw the highlighted notes. She nodded at the trust paperwork, then paused. Clause 4C, she murmured. I remembered it after the last visit. I said, didn't know what it could really do. She tapped the paragraph with her pen. More than most people think. Daniel put it in for a reason. He never trusted Mark with money. Neither did I, she muttered. He called me twice back then, asked for a copy of this trust. I told him no. I watched her read the clause again. If financial coercion is proven, she said, assets move into frozen trust status for 10 years, and you retain full control so long as it's triggered while you're alive. And if I'm gone, it dissolves, which is why it matters that you act now. I pushed a fresh notepad toward her. Help me draft the documentation. She opened her bag, pulled out a binder of templates from her law office days. We'll do it step by step. First, your timeline, every conversation, every document. The credit card, the party, the demand. I slid the sheets across the table. She placed each one into clear protectors. Then she pulled out a yellow folder. Let's build a legal trail. Emails, call logs, anything. It all counts. I've got a recording, I said, of the conversation when they asked for $3,000 a month. Her eyes didn't widen. She just nodded like she'd expected it. Daniel was right, she said quietly. He knew Mark might try something down the line. That's why he built in the delay clause. Delay clause. If you trigger this, she explained, your assets lock. Mark can't touch a thing, but neither can anyone else. Not for 10 years. Not unless it's for your direct care. The trust becomes a wall. I leaned back, let it sink in. 10 years of silence. No withdrawals, no transfers. Just me and whatever's written now. Do it, I said. She clicked her pen. We'll start with the declaration, then the notarization, then a duplicate sent to the lawyer who signed the original trust. After that, we keep everything sealed. She wrote as she talked. I watched her hand move fast, efficient. This wasn't her first time dealing with a family like mine. By the end of the hour, she had 3 folders marked and labeled, one for me, one for her, one to deliver. Before she left, she placed her hand on mine. "You're doing the right thing." I nodded, walked her to the door and locked it after she left. Then I sat back down, opened my laptop and searched for the original attorney's firm. I stopped walking when I heard my name. I was at the grocery store aisle 9, halfway to the coffee filters. I didn't mean to listen, but Kelly's voice carried. She was near the self-checkout phone pressed to her ear, her tote bag slung loose like she wasn't in a hurry. "She's being impossible," she said. "I mean, technically it was his money. Daniel's. She just inherited it. It should go to us." She laughed sharp and short. "She doesn't even use it. Just sits on it. We're the ones with real needs." A pause. "Then, no, Mark hasn't told her yet. He's waiting. I told him to push harder." I stood between two shelves of paper towels and dog treats, staring at nothing. "She'll cave," Kelly said. "She always does." She moved on, heels clicking against the tile. I backed out of the aisle and waited behind a display until she left. Back home, I dropped the grocery bag on the counter. I didn't unpack it. I sat down and opened the recorder. Date Thursday, 2nd, 12 p.m. Grocery store, Kelly Callan phone call. Stated, technically, it was his money. She just inherited it. It should go to us. I clicked it off and laid it gently beside the folders. They weren't even pretending anymore. I thought of Daniel's hands ink-stained from the drafting table, calloused from decades of work. I remembered the day he showed me the first draft of the trust. "This is for you," he'd said. "Not for them. Not if they treat you like an ATM." He'd warned me, and I'd nodded, thinking the gesture was enough. I never thought they'd be bold enough to feel entitled, to act like I owed them the cost of their lifestyle. I stood, made coffee, and stared out the kitchen window while it brewed. Mason's dinosaur was still sitting in the sunroom. The curtain fluttered in front of it. I took my cup and walked to the safe behind the coats. I opened it, pulled out the latest file Diane had marked behavioral patterns, verbal statements. I added a transcript of what I'd just recorded. I printed the note, stapled it to a fresh log sheet, and wrote in red ink at the top, inheritance obligation. They saw the money as their future. I saw it as survival. I closed the file, slid it back, and turned off the closet light. Then I sat down and drafted a new line to add to the declaration Diane had prepared. Pattern of entitlement voiced in public setting. Confirmation of intent to pressure. The next morning, I called the notary. I opened the door and stepped aside. Mark and Kelly walked in without a word. Mason wasn't with them this time. Their silence said everything. Kelly's jaw was tight. Mark's eyes didn't meet mine. We sat in the kitchen. I poured coffee for myself. They didn't ask for any. Kelly leaned forward first. "We need to talk numbers again." Mark cleared his throat. "We were hoping you'd reconsider the 3,000. Maybe more, depending on how tuition looks this fall." I stirred my coffee. Didn't rush. Didn't interrupt. Kelly kept going. "Mark's job isn't stable right now, and my hours got cut. We're stretched thin. You could really make a difference." I took a sip, set the mug down. "No," I said. Mark blinked. "No, no," I repeated. "I won't be giving you any more money." Kelly sat back. "Is this because of the sunroom? It's because I've given enough." "You haven't given everything," she said. "You act like this is generosity, but it's not. This is what families do. They support each other." Mark spoke next. "We've tried to be patient, but we can't keep waiting for you to come around. If this continues, we'll have to take steps." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of steps?" "Legal ones," Kelly snapped. "Financial assessment. Family mediation. We'll prove that you're withholding." I nodded. Calm, slow. "I made coffee," I said. "Would you like some?" Kelly stared at me like I hadn't heard a word she'd said. Mark looked uncomfortable now. "Mom, come on?" I said no, I answered. "That's all? You can do what you need to do." Kelly scoffed. "You think you're untouchable." No, I said. I think I'm done. I stood, walked to the counter, picked up a small tray, placed 2 fresh mugs on it, added cream and sugar, set it between us. Coffee? I asked again. They didn't touch it. Kelly stood first. You'll regret this. Mark followed slower. He paused before the door. We didn't want it to get ugly. I opened the door for them. Then don't make it ugly. They left. I closed the door, locked it, and stood still in the hallway for a long minute. Then I returned to the table, dumped their untouched coffee, and pulled out the folder labeled Verbal Threats. Escalation Attempts. I wrote the date, time, full summary. Quoted the phrase, take steps. Underlined it. I printed the note. Filed it behind the others. Then I took the recorder played back the moment Kelly snapped. I let it play once, then saved it. By afternoon, Diane had returned my call. I slid the laptop across the table. Diane adjusted her glasses, pulled the screen closer, and tapped the trackpad. Show me the alerts. I opened my email. One by one, the notifications filled the screen. Password reset request. Suspicious login attempt. Verification code sent. They're trying to get in, Diane said. Flatly. Look at the timestamps. 2 a.m, 3 attempts in one night. I nodded, my throat tight. She clicked into the details. See the recovery info, old tax data. Your social security digits. That's not random. Somebody had access to your paperwork. Mark, I whispered. She didn't answer, but her silence was enough. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out the folder where I kept our past tax returns. Daniel's neat handwriting still marked the envelopes. Year after year, line by line, those numbers were never meant to be weaponized. They think they're clever, Diane said. But every attempt leaves a trail. We document it. I took screenshots of each alert, labeled them by date and time, pasted them into a spreadsheet. Diane leaned over, pointing. Note the IP origin. It matches his city. That's all you'll need if this goes to court. I typed quickly, fingers stiff. Each line felt like another nail in a box I hadn't wanted to open. Now change everything, she said. I nodded. Opened my banking portal, reset every password. Turned on 2-factor authentication. Changed my phone verification. Added security questions no one could guess. Not even family. Diane wrote on her pad as I worked. You'll want a printout of each change confirmation. Keep them together. Staple the screenshots. It shows a pattern. When I finished, I leaned back. My coffee had gone cold again. I never thought I'd be doing this, I said quietly. She looked at me. I've seen worse. Families tearing themselves apart over less. But you're lucky Daniel prepared for this. You have the claws. You have me. What you need now is evidence, and you're building it. I picked up the recorder, spoke into it steady. Date, time. 3 attempts to reset my online banking using old tax info, confirmed by digital alerts, passwords changed, security increased. I clicked it off. My voice sounded calm, but my hands trembled. Diane closed her notebook. He's desperate, Lenora. And desperation makes people sloppy. Let him keep trying. The more he does, the stronger your case. I nodded, though inside I felt hollow. This wasn't how motherhood was supposed to look. It wasn't what Daniel and I had worked for. But here it was. I saved the files, printed duplicates, filed one set under digital security breaches. The other, I locked in the safe. Diane stood. Next step, we tighten your accounts beyond his reach. Tomorrow we meet with the bank directly. I walked her to the door. The night air felt cooler than it should. Back in the kitchen, I gathered the folders, stacked them neatly, and slid them back into the drawer. Then I wrote one last note on the legal pad. Every attempt is proof. The next morning, I dressed early, file box in hand, and drove to the bank. I spread the papers across the bank officer's desk. Diane sat beside me, her pen tapping against her notebook. The officer adjusted his tie, read the highlighted section, then leaned back. "This clause isn't standard," he said, "but it's binding. If you sign the declaration, the trust enters a 10-year freeze. No distributions, no loans, no interference." "Full control?" I asked. He nodded. "Yours alone." I looked down at Daniel's handwriting, faint in the margin. He'd circled the clause years ago and scrawled, "Keep this safe." I hadn't known why at the time. Now I did. Diane leaned closer. "This is the wall, Lenora. Once it's up, they can shout all they want, but nothing gets through." The officer slid a form across the desk. "Triggering it requires your signature and a notarized witness. I can notarize here." I held the pen. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. I wrote my name, steady, deliberate. The ink bled into the paper, final and black. The officer stamped the page. "Effective immediately. Copies will be filed within 24 hours. I exhaled. A long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Back home, I set the fresh documents on the kitchen table. Diane pulled out her portable scanner. "2 copies," she said. "One for the lawyer of record, one for your safe. I'll keep a third." I nodded. Together we fed each page through. Each whir of the machine felt like a nail in a door I'd closed forever. When we finished, I slipped my signed declaration into a plastic sleeve, taped the edges shut, wrote the date across the top in red ink. Diane looked at me. "Do you feel it yet?" "What the shift?" I sat down, ran my fingers along the edge of the folder. The anger, the humiliation, the silence, it was still there. But underneath it was something else. A steadiness. A line drawn. "They think they're circling prey," I said. "But they're already inside a cage." Diane packed her bag. "Let them make the next move. Every push only strengthens your case." After she left, I brewed coffee and sat at the table again. The house was quiet except for the slow drip of the pot. I opened the safe, slid the file inside, and spun the dial. Then I picked up the recorder, pressed the red button. Clause 4C activated today. Signed, notarized, effective immediately. Assets secured. Documentation complete. I clicked it off. The phone buzzed across the table. Mark's name lit the screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured the coffee, watched the steam rise, and carried the mug to the sunroom. Through the glass, the yard looked unchanged. Still, I knew everything had shifted. That night, I slept with the folder locked and the phone face down on the counter. By morning, I had 3 voicemails waiting. I walked into the bank holding a manila folder and didn't smile at anyone. The same officer from last time nodded when he saw me. He waved me to his office without a word. I sat down, pulled out the beneficiary forms. I need to update everything I said. Accounts, trust insurance. All of it. He pulled up the screen. "Do you have the revised documents I handed over the sheets?" Diane had typed them herself. Clean. Simple. My name in all the right places. No room for confusion. No room for claim. "Everything goes to charity now," I said. "The trust, the property, the insurance. It all moves to the fund once I'm gone." He glanced at the forms. "The foundation's listed properly. This will hold up. I want it notarized." He stood, stepped out, and came back with a woman who introduced herself and placed the stamp on the desk without waiting. "You read every word she asked." "I wrote most of them." I signed. She watched, then stamped, initialed, slid the document back. The officer printed confirmation slips. I signed those too. He looked up once more. "Are you sure about cutting your son off completely?" I met his eyes. He made the first cut. "I'm just drawing the line around it." I gathered the pages, slid them into a plastic folder, and left without a handshake. Outside, the sun was sharp against the pavement. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Small building, familiar receptionist. Quiet, carpeted halls. Mark Sullivan met me in the conference room. Older now, but still sharp. He scanned the documents quickly. "These are solid," he said. "Clause 4C gives you teeth. And the updated beneficiaries clean up any future contesting." "I want a copy held in your office," I said. "Unopened. File it under no early access." He nodded. "Consider it done." We notarized a second set. I initialed each page. He stamped, sealed, handed me the duplicates. Before I left, he paused. "You waited a long time to act." "I waited long enough to know I'd never regret it." I returned home just before dinner. I unlocked the safe, pulled out the older file, removed the previous beneficiary documents, and marked them void. Filed the new ones behind the activated trust clause. The safe door shut with a click. The lock spun twice. Then I brewed a fresh cup of coffee, set the mug on the table, and folded my hands. Everything was in place. Everything was mine again. The phone rang twice before I turned the ringer off. Tomorrow they'd come asking. I'd be ready. He showed up at noon with a folder in his hand. Didn't knock. Just walked in like it was still his house. I was slicing apples at the counter. "I brought something for you to look over," Mark said, laying the folder flat beside the sink. "Just a small form." I kept slicing. "What kind of form?" "Legal stuff," he said too casually. "Power of attorney limited. Just makes things easier. So I can help with bills, transfers, paperwork." I wiped my hands, opened the folder. One page, pre-filled, dated yesterday. His name printed neatly in Section 3. Full authority to act on behalf of Lenora Callan in financial matters deemed non-urgent. His lawyer's letterhead sat in the top corner. I read the line twice, then shut the folder. "I appreciate you thinking of me," I said, handing it back. "Let's go over it together at dinner. I'll make something simple." "You Kelly Mason come by at 6. Mark blinked. "Dinner." "Of course," I said. "Legal things deserve a proper conversation." He didn't argue, just nodded, forced a smile, and left. I stood at the window as his car pulled away, waited until he turned the corner. Then I opened the drawer by the fridge and pulled out my recorder. Today, Mark Callan brought a pre-filled legal form for limited power of attorney. No prior notice. Requested signature alone. I declined. Invited group discussion. At 5:30, I set the table. One extra plate, a pot of stew, coffee already brewed. At 6:02 they arrived. Mark first, Kelly behind him holding Mason's hand. I smiled. "Dinner's warm. Let's sit." We ate in silence for the first few minutes. Mason asked for bread. Kelly served him. Then Mark cleared his throat. "Mom, about the form." "I remember," I said. "Let's go over it." I handed him the folder. Watched Kelly lean forward, eyes sharp. I read it earlier. I continued. "You want to help with bills?" "Exactly," he said quickly. "You've got so much on your plate. Just giving you support." Kelly jumped in. "We thought it'd give you peace of mind." "We wouldn't touch anything without asking." I sipped my coffee. "I'm touched." Mark opened the folder, passed it toward me. A pen slid across the table. Mason watched from the side, chewing slowly. I didn't take the pen. "Let's read it aloud," I said. Kelly stiffened. "It's standard language." "Still," I said. "Words matter." So I read, every line, out loud, clear, even. When I reached the clause full discretion to access financial institutions on behalf of the grantor, I stopped. "Explain this one," I said. Mark looked annoyed. "That's just so I can help if anything comes up." "Like resetting account passwords?" I asked. He froze. Kelly stepped in. "It's a technical line. Nothing would happen without your approval." "I'd like a copy for my lawyer," I said. "Before I sign." Mark's tone changed. "We don't need to make this formal, Mom." I smiled. "Everything is formal now." I stood, took the folder, and walked it to my printer. Ran 2 copies, handed one back. "I'll call my attorney tomorrow," I said. "We'll go through it properly." If it's as harmless as you say, you'll have my signature by Friday. They didn't finish their stew. When they left, they didn't take the bread or the folder. I packed the bag myself. Apples, peanut butter, a box of granola bars Mason liked. I added 2 cans of chicken noodle soup, a pack of socks, and a folded note with his name in block letters. The school office knew me. I called ahead, asked if I could leave something for my grandson. They said yes. No hesitation. I drove it over during lunch hour, left it at the desk, and didn't wait. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't tell Kelly. That night, I found Mason's handwriting in the mailbox. Thank you, Grandma. The peanut butter is the best. My teacher let me open it after recess. I read the note twice, slipped it between the pages of my notebook. At 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Mark. Don't do that again without checking with us first. No greeting, no punctuation. I stared at the message for a full minute. I didn't reply. Instead, I reached for the recorder. Today, grocery bag delivered to school for Mason. Personal items, snacks, handwritten note. Mason responded with a thank you letter. Mark Callan responded via text, "Don't do that again without checking with us." I clicked it off, set it in the tray. Then I opened the safe, pulled out the folder marked Emotional Access, Control Patterns, and added a printed screenshot of the message. Kindness wasn't part of their plan. Control was. I sat with it a while. Not angry, just quiet. Daniel used to say people show their values when no one's clapping. I wasn't trying to be seen, just trying to be a grandmother. But even that apparently needed permission. The next morning, I made 2 more copies of the note and the screenshot. One for Diane, one for Mark Sullivan. Then I mailed Mason a new book and a pack of stickers. No return address. No note inside. Just the small things he liked. If they wanted to police love, they'd have to start by opening every envelope. And I had plenty left. I set the table for 4. Forks, knives, glasses. The store-bought lasagna was in the oven. I didn't make it from scratch. Didn't bother with salad. At 6:35, they rang the bell. Mark first, then Kelly with Mason behind her. They smiled too wide. I didn't. We sat. I poured water. They commented on the smell, smells like Sunday, Mark said. I nodded, but didn't touch my plate. Mason reached for the bread. Kelly swatted his hand. Wait till we all start, she said, glancing at me. I won't be eating, I said. They froze. I reached beside me and slid a manila folder across the table straight toward Mark. I'll let you explain what's in there, I said. To your wife. He frowned, opened it. Inside, a 2-page letter from Mark Sullivan, signed and sealed. Subject line, Notice of Revocation and Protective Clause. Activation, Estate Trust. Shari'd 48. Kelly leaned in, read over his shoulder. Her face changed before his did. Mark kept reading, flipping the page slowly. His hand clenched tighter around the folder. You sent this to a lawyer, he asked, voice low. No, I said. My lawyer sent it to you, certified, 2 days ago. You didn't sign for it, so I brought a copy. What is this? Kelly asked, eyes narrowing. The legal structure of everything you've tried to gain access to, I said. The trust, the will, the house, the accounts, all of it. Mark's jaw flexed. You can't just I did, I said. Clause 4C has been triggered. Everything is now in a protected state. Kelly stood up, hands on the back of her chair. This is insane. I didn't flinch. You brought me a power of attorney form. You discussed my inheritance as if it were an entitlement. You tried to access my accounts. You interfered with how I contact my grandson. And you said I'd regret it. Mark looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Mason watched the whole thing silent, chewing a piece of bread he'd snuck. Kelly turned to Mark. You said this was handled. He didn't answer. I stood, walked to the oven. Turned it off. The lasagna's yours, I said. I bought it for you. You can take it home? Kelly didn't move. Mark folded the letter, slid it back in the folder, and tucked it under his arm. No one said another word. They left with the food, but not the control. The door shut. The house went still. I cleared the unused plates, rinsed them, and left the rest in the sink. Then I poured coffee into my chipped mug, walked to the sunroom, and sat down. The next step wouldn't require another dinner. I waited until Mark sat down. He looked tired. No Kelly this time. No folder in his hand. Just him hunched slightly, eyes flicking around the room like he couldn't find a safe place to land. I didn't come to argue, he said. I slid the stack across the table. Neat. Stapled. Numbered. What's this A transcript, I said. Everything you've said. Everything she's said. Dates. Times. Screenshots. Memos. Alerts. Recorded calls. Bank attempts. Your power of attorney form. Her comment at the grocery store. The login alerts. The school message. It's all in there. He didn't reach for it. I flipped it open for him. Page 1, the grocery store conversation. Kelly's voice. Direct quote. Page 2, his text about Mason's grocery bag. Page 3, bank attempt timestamps. Matching IP. Page 4, the form he brought for me to sign, scanned and annotated. I kept flipping. Each page louder than the last. Then the last one. The activation notice. Clause 4C. Initiated. Locked. 10 years. No access. No exceptions. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched in his lap. I didn't know she said those things, he muttered. She said them, I said. But you handed me the pen. He stared at the paper. His ears went red. I just thought you'd help. That you'd want to help. I leaned forward. Calm. I did help. For years. Quietly. Without contracts. Without conditions. That wasn't enough. He looked up. For a second I saw something almost honest. Not guilt, not apology. Just the recognition that he'd underestimated the person across the table. I didn't think you'd do all this, he said. I know, I said. That's why it worked. He opened his mouth. Closed it again. You recorded us, he finally asked. You gave me reasons to. He flipped through the stack again. Faster this time. Like speed could soften what he saw. You don't trust me anymore, he said. I didn't answer. Mom. Still silent. His voice dropped. So what? Now I stood. Took back the papers. Slid them into the envelope. Now I said, you live with what you've done. And I live with what I protected. He stayed in the chair for a while. Long after I stepped into the kitchen, when I returned, he was gone. But the chair was still pulled out. The letter came in the mail. No stamp, just hand-delivered and slipped through the slot. Inside, a printed note from Mark. 2 paragraphs. 1 line in bold. We'll talk to a judge. I folded it. Set it aside. Picked up my phone. Called Mark Sullivan. He answered on the first ring. I've been expecting that, he said before I could read it aloud. They want to challenge it. They can try, he said. But the trust is locked. Clause 4C is time-triggered and irreversible once active. Let them walk into court. I'll hand the judge your documentation before they open their mouths. He didn't sound worried. He sounded ready. That afternoon, the bank called. The manager I'd met with 2 weeks prior. Just a heads up, she said, calm but clipped. Your son came in this morning asking about joint rights on your savings. He brought a copy of the old power of attorney form. I told him it wasn't valid. Did he leave quietly? Not really. But we filed a report and flagged your account. I thanked her. Hung up. Opened the folder. Added another entry. Attempted access via outdated POA. Denied by bank. Report filed. An hour later, Diane texted. Just spoke to our guy at the courthouse. No motions filed under your name. They're bluffing. I believed it. They weren't prepared for silence to answer louder than yelling. They thought I'd rattle. I brewed coffee. Sat in the sunroom. Watched the wind stir the bird feeder. At 6:22 p.m., another message. This time from Kelly. You think this wins you something I didn't answer? Instead, I forwarded it to Mark Sullivan. He replied within minutes. Let them keep digging their own hole. Every message is gold. I closed my phone, locked the safe, fed the envelope into the shredder, the one with their bluff and bold words. The noise didn't last long. That night I ate dinner by myself. Lights off in the front rooms. Just the lamp in the corner casting a soft circle over the armchair and the documents in my lap. The doors they wanted to open had already been sealed. And the key they needed had never left my hands. I pulled weeds from the garden when I heard footsteps crunch on the walkway. It was Marion from 2 doors down, still in her nursing scrubs. She held a paper bag in one hand, a tight smile on her face. I brought cinnamon rolls, she said. Didn't know if you were up for company. I wiped my hands on my apron. I've got coffee. We sat in the kitchen. She placed the bag on the table but didn't open it. Just looked at me like she'd been holding something in too long. I didn't want to believe it when I heard she said, but then my cousin sent me the post, the one with your son's name in the comments. People are talking. I poured coffee. Didn't flinch. She lowered her voice. They said he tried to take your house, that he forged something, that he tried to get access to your bank. I nodded. Her eyes welled. Lenora, I'm so sorry. I always thought Mark was one of the good ones. You raised him so well. I sipped my coffee. Didn't correct her. Didn't defend him either. I just want you to know, she continued. You're not alone. Not in this neighborhood. Not with people who know what real strength looks like. I nodded again. Quiet. Measured. Later that day, the mail carrier handed me a bundle that didn't fit the box. Inside were 3 cards. One from Susan at church. One unsigned. One typed and printed on plain white paper. Some people forget who carried them when they couldn't walk. You didn't deserve this. I added it to the folder under community response. Diane called that night. You've made the rounds, she said. 3 women from Bridge Club want to bake you casseroles. I laughed once, just once. They said you're the talk of the week, Diane added, and not in a scandal way, in a legend way. I didn't need it, but it was nice. Kelly had stopped posting on social media. Mark's account had gone private. No one came to fix the sunroom like they'd once planned. No one parked in my driveway anymore. The house grew quiet again. Not empty, just undisturbed. I swept the porch, watered the plants, moved the wind chimes 2 inches left to catch the breeze better. Respect returned in small knocks. Quiet nods and one-hand squeezes from women who had seen enough life to know when silence wasn't weakness. It was control. By Friday, I'd stopped checking the phone. No more bold threats. No more plans disguised as concern. Just a stillness I hadn't felt in months. I kept the blinds open that night. Let the porch light glow. Let the neighborhood see I wasn't hiding. I slept with my door unlocked, not because I trusted them, because I didn't have to anymore. The phone rang 3 times before the voicemail kicked in. His voice filled the kitchen low and rehearsed. Mom, it doesn't have to end like this. Let's fix it. For Mason. He needs you. We need you. Call me back. The line clicked. Silence again. I didn't delete it. I didn't replay it. I just saved it under a folder called Attempts. The house was quiet. Afternoon light spilled across the table where the stack of folders sat, each one heavier than the last. I opened the drawer, took out a sheet of stationery, and placed it in front of me. No shaking hands, no wasted words. I wrote slowly. Mark, this is the last letter. The trust is sealed. The house is mine until I'm gone. Your name is not on any account. Any further attempts will be handled by my lawyer, not me. For Mason's sake, I hope you find a better way forward. You've already taken too much space in my silence. Mom. I folded it once. Slid it into an envelope. No return address. At the post office, I didn't wait in line. I dropped it in the outgoing bin and walked out. On the drive back, the sky was clear, the streets ordinary. No storm, no sign of collapse. Just regular life continuing the way it does when the shouting stops. I pulled into the driveway, parked, and sat for a while. The house stood steady. The porch light still worked. The roses needed trimming, but they were alive. Inside, the phone stayed quiet. No more calls that night. I placed the pen back in its holder, closed the drawer, and left the folders stacked in the safe. Then I brewed coffee, poured it black, and sat by the window. The letter was already out of my hands, the choice already made, and for the first time in months I didn't feel like explaining a thing. I pulled out the photo from the drawer, the one from when he was 5. He's in my lap, icing on his nose, my hand steady on his shoulder. No tension, no scripts, just the truth of who we were. I placed it on the table, chose an envelope without a window. Then I reached for the note card. No lines, just blank white space. I didn't use the typewriter. I wrote it by hand. Mason, this isn't about what they said. It's about who we were before that. When you're ready, call me. No one else. Just me. Grandma. No pressure. No shame. No guilt tucked in the corners. I signed it, flipped the photo over, and scribbled the date, March 4th, 2018, the day we baked that cake. I added a phone number, not my house line. A prepaid phone, clean, quiet, locked in the safe until now. One contact saved, no apps, no inbox, just a single purpose. I slid the note and photo inside, sealed it, wrote his name on the front, Mason Callan. I drove to the school during lunch hour, walked in, asked for the secretary. Just something for my grandson, I said. No reply needed. She nodded, took the envelope, didn't ask questions. When I got home, I didn't check the phone, didn't hover, didn't flinch. That evening, I cleaned the sunroom, watered the plants, set the spare chair beside mine. I made coffee and poured only 1 cup. The rest I left for later. I turned the burner on. The flame caught with a soft click. The percolator hissed. Steam curled and tapped the underside of the cabinet. I stood still, listening. No footsteps. No cars pulling in. No voice asking what I was cooking. I opened the cupboard, reached for the mug, chipped along the rim, white with black letters. Still the owner. I poured slow. Let it fill to the brim. The smell filled the kitchen. Bitter, strong mine. The table was clear, the counters wiped down, nothing out of place, no toys, no empty cups, no stacks of paper shoved under placemats, just 1 cup, 1 seat. 1 window letting in the quiet. I sat, held the mug with both hands, didn't rush. Didn't think about the mail, the phone, the weight of anything outside this room. The documents were filed, the safe was locked. The lawyer was on standby, but I wouldn't need him today. There were no more threats, no more dinner invites laced with plans, no more doorbell surprises. Just coffee. Just me. Just the house I'd paid off, protected, and chosen to keep for no one else but myself. I took the first sip. Warm. Steady. No aftertaste. What do you drink when peace finally fits in a cup?